Hello and welcome to the Midday Brief. My name is Kimini Nyamani Amano. Coming up, Hajj committee postpones airlifting its first batch of 5,424 pilgrims for this year's pilgrimage. We'll be finding out why shortly. In foreign news, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius is visiting Moscow to try to persuade Russia to support a UN Security Council resolution on Syria. When I return, I'll bring you details of these stories and many more. Now, 3 people have been confirmed dead with several others injured in a fatal accident at Al Hassan Kura near Kintampo. The injured are also receiving treatment at the Buipe Hospital. We have on the telephone Superintendent Desmond Usubuampon, who is Kintampo District Police Command. Hello, Superintendent. Well, we have lost Superintendent. When we do have him, we will bring back the interview. In the meantime, let's look at senior high school placement. And the Ghana Education Service says the computerized schools selection and placement system is ready to place BECE candidates into senior high schools. The GES last Thursday searched the placement of qualified BECE candidates into senior high schools would begin by Friday, September 20, 2013. The GES says once it takes delivery of the raw scores or merit list, the CSSPS Secretariat should be able to finish the placement exercise by October 1, 2013. A total of 391,082 candidates sat for the 2013 BECE, and the West African Examination Council and has so far released provisional results of some 383,812 candidates. The placement of 30% of candidates from the catchment areas of senior high schools is expected to be done first, after which the rest of the candidates, which is just about 70%, would then be placed. Now let's look at some other stories where residents of some communities in the Tano South district of the Bonohafo region are asking government to urgently rehabilitate the main road linking the area to the district capital, Bichim. Now they say the deplorable state of the road is making life unbearable for them, adversely impacting the communities, as most drivers either charge exorbitant fares or simply refuse to ply the route. Nesta Kafuya Joma visited the area and brought in this.
Breme, Ohienim Guasie, Mansin and Bofuakwa are major farming communities in the Tano South district. Most of the farmers cultivate vegetables and cocoa, Ghana's main cash crop. Due to the poor nature of the road, they find it difficult to convey their farm produce to the urban center. The farmers told Joy News the vegetable and other food crops go waste in the communities and farms during the rainy season, as drivers refuse to transport them to Bichim Market Center. Commercial drivers who ply this route picked 6 passengers instead of the mandatory 4 due to the deplorable nature of the road. Kofi Buampo and Akwesi Dodu are commercial drivers on the stretch. They appealed to the Ministry of Roads and Highways and other appropriate authorities to help construct the road.
Yedru be pono so a ne aka sesi yesi nipa ne pia ka na ansa na yetimi ayeden aba nti yesra ban se o meboaye na o meye agikakra wo be pono so kakra maye.
Nesta Kafuya Jomes report.
The Ghana Federation of the Disabled says government is proven to be the only obstacle between them and a high-level United Nations meeting scheduled for later this month to talk on disability and development. According to representatives, the Federation independently registered for the meeting and have had participation confirmed. They also have their visas, but are yet to hear word from government on whether or not they will be part of the delegation. Isaac Tugun is the advocacy officer for the Federation. He's here with me in the studio. He'll tell us what exactly the problem is. Many thanks, Isaac, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Right, so let's go about the problem again. I know we were talking about it earlier, but why must government be the one to take the federation along?
About disability issues, government has the sole responsibility of taking care of everybody in the country, including persons with disability. When there are issues concerning the nation, government travel. Sometimes it's about women issue. Government goes, the delegation include women. Sometimes it's about other things, and they include the groups involved. So, persons with disability for some since time immemorial have not been allowed to be part of decisions that affect them. And when you see the World Report jointly produced by the World Bank and the WHO, one of the critical issue mentioned is that the lack of involvement of persons with disability in decision making or in designing projects and programs which are intended to benefit them is one of the barriers for their inclusion and effective participation in society. So when you look at some of these things, for example, in July, there was this meeting in the US about the MDGs. The MDGs actually did not have affect persons with disability in a positive way anyway. So that why the UN recognized that and decided that they will redesign this to include persons with disability.
Which is why we have this high-level meeting.
So the earlier one was a preparation towards this very meeting. Our members, organization of persons with disability, where we talked to the ministry, and the ministry we actually sent a letter, and they included some of our members. They got the visas okay. At the end of the day, they didn't go, and the reason was what? There was no money.
And so this time, have you contacted the government again?
This time, we started talking about the issue with the Minister of Gender, Children, and Social Protection earlier. But then, because of the experience we had over the years, the Federation, as the national umbrella organization of persons with disability, registered for the participation of PWDs. Because when we look at the program, there is what we call the interactive roundtables, where organization of persons with disability are included in that section. Now, so we went ahead to register for participation, and our participation was confirmed, and those key representative register were given letters of appointment and IDs, and they viewed the letters of appointment to acquire the visa, US visa. They are ready, but we've been waiting. We didn't hear anything from government, so we wrote to the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection.
And what feedback have you had?
We copied the Chief of Staff and the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. We have not yet received any feedback yet. And time is drawing nearer.
This meeting is on the 23rd
It's
of
on
September.
the 23rd. So now, as of now, though we have the visa, we don't know whether government will include us in a delegation. But that was exactly what our letter was about, the inclusion of persons with disability. Because when you look at the program, you realize that all state parties to the convention will be coming with persons with disability.
If you are unable to be there, what sort of challenge would it pose for the Federation here in the country?
In the first place, over there will be discussion about disability issue. That is one thing. And persons with disability must be able to explain what they go through, must look at the discussion and make input into it. Because at the end of the day, they will be the people to be affected by the decision.
Right.
So now, it will also be a learning process and sharing of information and best practices at that level. So now, if we are not there, then it boils down to the same thing. We don't learn anything from it. We don't make input to anything. And then it then means that people who are not really persons with disability, they have come to design and project and decide what they think is good for us again. And it goes back to the very barrier mentioned in the World Report.
You told me earlier about the fact that this it's not new. The fact that you're going to be left, you are likely to be left out of this high-level meeting. It's not the first time. Most of the time, government goes ahead, takes decisions that would affect you without necessarily consulting you.
Yeah.
We have this high-level meeting, which would affect you anyway, and you're not going to be there. What would happen if, for the umpteenth time, you won't be at a meeting that would affect you?
What will happen is that, the reason why we are discussing this very issue is that it is very critical to the disability movement.
What would the PWD, the Federation, do about the fact that for the umpteenth time there will be a meeting that would affect you and you won't be there?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is maybe if we are not able to be part of that one to go, we'll have to meet, package something and go back to government.
But you went to the foreign ministry today in relation to the same issue.
Yeah, I followed up.
And what response did you get from the foreign ministry?
When I got there, it was even health. You see, the foreign affairs, that new foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration bill there, is even a violation of the provision of Section 6 of the Persons with Disability Act. Because that ministry was built after the act has come into effect. But when you look at it, the reception is impossible for a person with disability to get there. Full of staircases, and it's very high, full of staircases. And that is where you must pass through to get clearance before you get in. When I didn't go there, I went through the gate with a taxi, and they drove me out. Say I must go out and go through the reception. I told them, how would I even get there? And the security people there were not prepared to understand. I had to write something on a complimentary card to give to the taxi driver who should have gone. He had to stand to be outside to help me to do all these things. He went and they told me that the chief director was not in. So I was not able to meet him to know what the situation would be. But I was actually following up on that letter.
What really were you there to discuss with the chief director? We
copied the chief director. You understand? So we were going to, because the other days we had unconfirmed reports that we could not trace, that a statement was made to the effect that government will be attending the meeting with person with disability. Meanwhile, the organization of person with disability
had not been notified.
We've not been told anything. So is it that they've gone to select individuals somewhere who are known to them, or they are actually looking at the movement, disability movement in the country? So we don't know. So I wanted to get some clarification on this, and also to find out what is the position of government with regard to our participation.
Tell me something. Do you feel this Persons with Disability Act is effective enough? It looks like it's not binding on anybody, and so we do things and get away with it.
I must say that there is no conscious effort to implement the act, because whatever is going on in the country, there is no institution or authority to monitor. But the act requires that. The National Council of Persons with Disability is not resource, so it is not able to perform in mandatory function. Second, the mandate of the council expires in April 2012. It has not been reconstituted yet, so there are no board to come out with policies and policies and decision for implementation. And looking at it, it is not all the provisions that require LI to implement it. When you look at sections 34 and section 35, even 35 talk about establishment and operation of what do you call it, assessment centers, so that they will detect disability in children at the early stage and look for the appropriate remedies. Now this one, it doesn't require any LI. You understand what I mean? In the regional hospital, just a department or place can be created for the assessment. But these assessments are not there. There are no register on person with disability as we speak today. The council is not able to propose any policies or strategy for the inclusion and effective participation of persons with disability. Now, buildings are coming up today, including government buildings like the Foreign Affairs Ministry. and they are violating. There is no accessibility path that are being constructed. What do we do? And then if the government itself is not even complying with the provision of the act, will they have the moral justification to ask the private sector to do so?
To do so. That's a very essential point.
Yeah. So now, even as we speak today, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability was ratified in 2012. But up to date, we still do not know any focal institution or ministry that is responsible for the implementation of the CRPD, that the convention. We don't know. And we've raised the issue several times. And Ghana will report next year.
I'm afraid would have to end our conversation here. Unfortunately, I forced to reach the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. Have not been successful, so we'll get their side of the story. Perhaps in the course of the bulletin, we'll find out from them. But thank you very much, Isaac, for your time here on the Midday Brief. Isaac Tugung is with he's an advocacy officer for the Federation, the Ghana Federation of the Disabled, and we've been talking about the high-level meeting on the 23rd of September 2013. You're watching the Midday Brief. When I return, there are more stories. You're welcome back. Now, the Hajj committee is expecting to airlift about 5,424 pilgrims for this year's pilgrimage. Now, the Hajj is a ritual pilgrimage to Mecca. It is the largest gathering of people in the world every year and one of the 5 pillars of Islam, a religious duty that must be carried out by every able-bodied Muslim who can afford to do so at least once in his or her lifetime. The pilgrimage occurs from the 8th to 12th Al-Hijjah, the 12th and last month of the Islamic calendar. The Hajj is associated with the life of the Islamic prophet Muhammad from the 7th century. Right now, what we now know is the fact that the Hajj committee has postponed the first airlifting of some pilgrims to this year's Hajj pilgrimage. And Mohammed Amin Lamte is Deputy PRO of the Hajj Secretariat. He's joined me here in the studio. He was telling us why really we can have our first batch on September 17th. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And many thanks for your time this afternoon.
I'm most grateful for having me.
Right. So why can't we have our first batch on the 17th?
It's a very good question. First of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm also saying good afternoon to your cherished viewers. I think Hajj is on the heart of every Ghanaian, being a Muslim or a Christian, because as you already indicated, is one of the most attractive global meeting of humanity in the world. So Muslims per se take it very seriously, and I was so excited you mentioned that every Muslim has been mandated, provided you have the means, to once visit the Hajj. For this year, you know, based on the past, there's one or two changes that we've done so far regarding how to help to make sure that pilgrims who get to Saudi Arabia without any hitches. So we decided to make sure that this year pilgrims will be airlifted on time, so that they'll go and rest and be able to sort of acclimatize, especially those who are going there for the first time. But in consultation with the agents, the Hajj agent, and some, you know, stakeholders, they realized that going there on the 17th will be quite a bit early, because especially when you have those who don't have experience at the Hajj, would sort of end up spending their monies and other things, so that when you get to the crunch, they will find wanting. So I think that the board members agree with them. They sat down and looked at the permutations and agreed that, look, it's better we reschedule it to 24th. So that is the reason why it has been changed from 17th to 24th.
But there have been thoughts that is because arrangement is a bit patchy and shaky, so we can't fly our first
No,
batch
I don't think
to
so.
Mecca.
For this year, as I rightly indicated, with the past experience, those who have served for all this while have done a yeoman's job. So it gave us the chance to look through and see how best we can reorganize and reshape things into the future. So for this year, the reason why we brought about this 17th was, as I said, it's about airlifting them on time, and then we can clear them on time so that there won't be any hitches. But this real advice came at the right time, when we're just about to. and I think that is healthy. There is nothing like patchy. This time around, everything is on course. There is no cause for alarm, and I think even the pilgrims, those who were supposed to be airlifted on the 7th, they are very excited, even though they are ready to be airlifted. But when the date was changed to 24th, they were so excited. So I think that it is about collaboration with the right people at the right time. So everything is on course.
Doctors have warned that we shouldn't underestimate, you know, the coronavirus, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus. And I want to find out from you, what are the steps the committee is taking so that people who go there do not get infected and don't come back home with it?
Absolutely. Normally, you know, the committee chair would have to attend Saudi Arabia to go and study the terrain regarding accommodation, transportation, and if there is any outbreak of any disease, they'll be informed for you to be able to take the precautions. So when the chairman returned home after the first meeting, he brought the information. So what he did was that, together with the board members, they quickly consulted the Ministry of Health, because even though we have the main man who is in charge of medicals, but I moved to the Ministry of Health, who actually, we gave them our proposals. They've also responded and see how best we can protect Ghanaian pilgrims. So as we speak now, we've all agreed that, look, each and every pilgrim will be given about two masks that they will use to protect themselves. But the last time we've met, I think the chairman is even looking forward to increase the number, so that in terms of their hygiene and other things, they'll be able to swap this mask so that they won't actually get themselves into any trouble. So for now, we've taken all the measures and everything is under control.
I think our online funds are also very ready for the Hajj pilgrims. Most of the comments we're having on this particular topic is from our Muslim brothers and sisters, and they're really prepared for it. Tell us when the first batch will now be airlifted.
Absolutely, 24th of this month, just about 6-7 days away, and we'll be airlifting the first, you know, I mean, the first group, the first march, I think is going to end on the 17th of October. So we are ready, and if you go to the village now, everything is under control in terms of the facilities, in terms of measures, in terms of security, in terms of even welfare of pilgrims, and even those who are there working for the Hajj. Everything is under control. We are very excited that everything started on time, and as we speak now, in the wisdom of the new board, we're able to put up a new building that is going to take care of holy water, Zamzam, we call it, because many a times when pilgrims travel to Saudi coming home, some of them actually could not really come home with their water. So now, in the wisdom of the board, we've created the how do you call it, the warehouse for the holy water. So we will bring the holy water in there. So when they return home with their names and their identification, they will offer the water. So we've taken some load on the pilgrims for this year.
Is it going to put any pressure on the Hajj village we have? The fact that you have changed the...
No, the place is very spacious.
I see.
It's spacious. It's about delegating of responsibility.
I see.
So the chairman is there. We have other board members. We also have committee members who are dealing. We have the welfare, we have security, we have communication, for which I'm a member. We also have those who are in charge of the food vendors. 2 days ago, we had a meeting with them. We have a nurse who came and spoke to them regarding hygiene, how they should protect their foods, just to avoid pilgrims here, going to Saudi with some ailment and what have you. So everything is under control.
So how many batches of flights are we going to have now?
No, so far we're going to have about 17 flights.
17
flights. And on each flight, I think we're expecting about 350, 400.
Which is not different from the first arrangement.
I think so.
Except for the fact that you're starting on the September 24th.
Everything is intact. It's only the date that has changed. Regarding the number, everything is intact now.
We should expect the last flights to leave by
17th of October.
Thank you very much,
I'm most grateful. Thanks so much.
Mohammed Amin Lamde is Deputy PRO of the Hajj Secretariat. He's been explaining to us why they have had to postpone the first lifting date from September 17 to September 24. You're watching the Midday Brief. We'll quickly move on to some other stories where the National Identification Authority has ended its mass registration in the Upper East region. The National Identification registration started the process in the Upper East region on August 15. Joining us by telephone is Bertha Jabla. She's Public Affairs of the National Identification Authority. Hello, Bertha. Hello, Bertha.
Yes.
All right, good to speak to you again. But tell us about the Upper East region and the registration process. How many residents were you able to capture?
Well, thank you, and good afternoon to you and your listeners. We don't have the registration figures currently. I tried to find out before this interview. But, we have various districts that we work in, and they have to collate the figures and pull all together for me to be able to give you. The Director of Operations has not got that figure right now, so I'm unable to give you a figure as to how many people in total we have registered so far.
I remember in the Upper West region, there was a last minute, there was a last minute experience where we had so many people in very long queues on the last day. What were some of the challenges you faced in the Upper East region?
Well, the Upper East region, I think rain was one of the major problems that affected us. Because it was in the rainy season. Zone 2, for instance, the first 3 days, there were slight rains, though not a full day rain. Some parts of the rain, it rained off. And so we decided to add on 1 day for the registration as we did in the Upper West region. Unfortunately, the last day that we added on, it rained again half of the day. So those were the challenges that we will say were the main challenges. So making access to the registration centers a bit difficult. We had a peculiar situation in the Boku district. We had 3 districts put together as one operational district. That is the Bindure, the Boku Municipal, and Boku East, which is the Pusiga area. Some of our operators, those who operate the workstations, did not turn up. And so that made it difficult for some of the centers to operate. We had intended putting 2 personnel in almost each of those centers, but because of that challenge, we had to use only 1 operator at 1 center. And so that's another challenge that we face, and that might affect the number of people that are captured in this peculiar situation. But we are reviewing the situation, waiting for the figures to look at it, and then we take a decision. Our minister, Honorable Dr. Mustafa Ahmed, was in the field himself, and we're looking at the situation. And so if there's any need for us to go back and do some mop-up in those particular areas, we will do that. So we are reviewing the situation.
I see. Now, when you say take a decision as to whether or not to give an extension for registration in the region, is that it?
It might not be a global thing. As I said, we are reviewing the peculiar situation, and this is more around the Boku area. So we want to get all the district figures together. If we think that the Boku situation was bad enough, then we might have to look at maybe sending some staff back into the field to do some registration in some of those places that were affected. Indeed, the Deputy Regional Minister called to report about some centers that were not served at all. And so these are situations that we may have to resolve.
Right.
So, yeah, those are the peculiar situations.
But over time, you have given us the understanding that the mass registration exercise is not necessarily to capture everybody, and that we could go to your offices and register after the entire process is over. How far with some of these your offices we are supposed to go and register after the mass exercise?
Currently, each of the 3 regions, we had maintained a skeletal staff to be doing the registration. But as you said, it's a permanent institution that we need to quickly move into the continuous phase of this registration exercise, which requires us to open regional, zonal offices. The minister, again, we spoke to him on all of these issues, and it requires us sitting down to meet with them. He is going to hold a meeting with the Minister of Finance because there's finance involved. We need financial approval, for instance, to engage personnel for these offices. We need to either hire or officers, or if the district assemblies are able to find space for us, then we open these places we need furniture, we need all kinds of things. So we're working with the minister, and he promised to speak to the Minister of Finance on behalf of the authority. So these are planning.
But as it stands, can you afford to have offices across the country?
Well, for now, it is the budgetary requirement. That is what we have to do. We have the equipment right now. The personnel are already trained. We just need the financial approval to be able to open these places, get some furniture, get the office space, and put people there. That's why I said that we need to sit down and plan and see how effective this can be with government support. We'll be able to do that.
Is this happening anytime soon?
I hope so, since we've already started the discussion, and it's something that has already been on the drawing board. Indeed, in the last 2 years' budget, permission or approval has been given for us to open regional offices, but it's only the financial aspect that we're waiting for. I want to add that the loan that we have been speaking about all the time from China that we will use to upgrade the system will also enable us to have these offices established. So if that becomes available or complete soon, then that solves all the problems that we are talking about right now.
I see. And so these residents of the Upper East region who have registered, how soon will they get their cards?
A big question, because we still have cards outstanding for other regions that we have covered for so long. There was a challenge at some point with the system, but that is a contractual thing that we know has been resolved, and plans are afoot for them to fix the system to be operating at the standard that it should be operating. With that solution, we hope to move into a faster pace of distributing the ID cards to people. Indeed, that has financial implications, but with all of these things, we have had discussions on them.
Right.
So we're hopeful that we will get all of the support we need so we can get the cards back to people.
But Betha, when you mentioned, problem with the system, you meant machines.
Yes, there was.
Are your machines not breaking down too early after you have bought them? Just too soon, a little too soon for your machines to break down.
Yes, the part of it had to do with some power problem, failure at some point. That's about the printing part. But the system itself had a difficulty that, as I said, was a contractual thing that the Sajem or Morpho, Safran Morpho had to be brought back to do it. The time had expired, but we had to bring them back in so that they could work on that. And I think that is almost resolved right now.
Right. Thank you very much, Betha. Betha Jabla is Public Affairs Director of the National Identification Authority. Let's move on to some other stories. And the Ghana Bar Association says it will soon begin investigations into media commentaries on the election petition, which was dismissed by the Supreme Court in August. President of the GBA, Nana Megacha, revealed on Monday, September 16, that the General Legal Counsel has mandated the Executive Committee of the Association to probe all allegations and unsavory comments made by lawyers after the August 29 ruling following the Supreme Court's verdict. Some lawyers have made comments widely described as demeaning and an affront to the integrity of the judiciary, but the GBA president, Nana Megacha, said some of the comments and allegations are so serious that if allowed to go without proper investigations, the floodgates will be opened for lawyers and litigants who have either won or lost a case in court to lash at judges and the court of public opinion. Midday Brief returns in a bit. You're welcome back. Now, industrialist and former president of the Association of Ghana Industries, Tony Otinjesi, has been appointed chairman of the reconstituted board of directors for the Electricity Company of Ghana. Other members of the board, Dr. Kwesi Apia Kubi, John Janapo, Dr. Ofosu Ahinkra, Dr. Clement Abavana, Nana Kwebu Ewusi VII, Samuel Kujo, Eunice Komnasha, the managing director of the company, Houghton Mensah. Now, moving right on, National Communications Authority will soon commission its latest state-of-the-art monitoring equipment to assess the performance of mobile telcos as well as internet service providers. Speaking at the launch of the 30th Quality of Service Development Group meeting in Accra, the Minister of Communication, Eduardo Mane Boama, said this measure is in line with efforts to improve the quality of service delivery by these providers. Let's now move on to some international news. And the Bangladesh Supreme Court has rejected the appeal of an Islamist leader against his jail term for war crimes, sentenced him to death. In February, Abdul Qadir Mullah of the Jamaat-e-Islamist group was convicted by a special tribunal of crimes during the 1971 War of Independence in Pakistan.
Said the charges were politically motivated, but his opponent said that sentence was too lenient. The life sentence imposed at the time sparked angry street protests. Thousands staged vigils in Dhaka demanding the death penalty for Mullah, who had been convicted of charges which included overseeing massacres during the bloody struggle for independence. The protest prompted Parliament to amend a law which allowed the state to appeal against any verdict reached by the War Crimes Tribunal. This meant that alongside Mullah's appeal against his verdict, the Supreme Court also heard an appeal from the government which wanted a tougher sentence handed down. Defense lawyer Tajul Islam said this is the first time in South Asian judicial history that a trial court sentence has been enhanced by a Supreme Court.
Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius is visiting Moscow to try to persuade Russia to support a UN Security Council resolution on Syria. On Monday, UN weapons inspectors said the nerve gas sarin was used against civilians on a relatively large scale in a suburb of Damascus last month. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon described it as a war crime.
France is now trying to win support for a UN resolution with the threat of serious consequences. But Russia, which is Syria's strongest ally, says the government of President Bashar al-Assad should first be given the chance to give up its chemical weapons. Fabiu will discuss with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov a possible UN Security Council resolution on the agreement to place Syria's chemical arsenal under international control. The US, UK and France say the UN inspectors' report vindicates their stance that Syria is to blame for the August 21 attack. The US and UK ambassadors to the UN said technical details showed only the regime could have been responsible for the attack.
Now, engineers have succeeded in setting the cruise ship Costa Concordia upright 20 months after it ran aground off the island of Giglio. They said that the unprecedented salvage effort reached degree 0 vertical, which was the target. And the operation that took all of Monday and most of the night, they used cables and metal water tanks to roll the ship onto a platform.
Concordia capsized in January 2012, killing 32 people. The bodies of 2 of the victims of the disaster by the island of Giglio have never been found. There are hopes that they may be located during the operation. Months of work lie ahead, assessing and repairing damage to the ship before it can be towed away to be destroyed, probably next spring. The ship was declared completely upright shortly after 4 hours local time or 2 hours GMT on Tuesday. Franco Gabrielli, the head of Italy's Civil Protection Authority, said the vessel was now sitting on a platform built on the seabed. A perfect operation, I must say, said Franco Posalaccia, leader of the technical team for Costa Cruise, the owner of the ship. He added that no environmental spill had been detected so far, one of the main aims given the pristine waters of the marine sanctuary in which it capsized.
Rashida Baba Kadiri brings us sports after this.
You're welcome back, and my name is Rashida Baba Kadri. Time now for us to talk sports. This is made possible by the kind courtesy of Tigo. Smile, you've got Tigo. Now, yesterday, Liverpool maintained their 100% record in the 2013-2014 Barclays Premier League. Yesterday, they drew at home, or they drew away actually to Swansea City 2-2, meaning that ever since the Premier League started this season, they are yet to lose a match. Let's see what happened in the 2-2 draw at Swansea City.
4 goals on Monday night as Swansea held Liverpool to a 2-2 draw at the Liberty Stadium. He gave the Swans the lead barely 2 minutes in against his former club before he gifted Daniel Sturridge his 10th goal in 9 games and his 4th of the season, August's Player of the Month capitalising on a weak back pass. Shelvey completed a 0-0 first-half performance as his missed time pass found Victor Moses for the new Reds man to go all the way and give the visitors the lead. In a much-improved second-half performance, Swansea found an equaliser just after the hour mark, Shelvey setting up Michu for his first goal of the season. Despite the 2-2 draw, it extends Liverpool's unbeaten run, sending them back to the top of the table.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a point. It's early stages, I know, but takes us back to the top again and keeps our momentum going from January, really. You know, our run and our form has been excellent, and in the next couple of weeks we get one of the best strikers in the world coming back into the group. So now we're progressing quite well. As I said, I repeat, we've got a lot of improvements that I still think we need to make.
It was the first of 7 games in 21 days for Michael Laudrup's men with Europa League and League Cup commitments ahead. He was happy to come away with a draw against an ever-improving Merseyside outfit.
I think it was a great second half performance, best so far, and I was very pleased because especially after what happened in the first half, and to consider as well, we're talking Liverpool. Won the first 3 games, a team was very good on the ball, very good in possession, and I think in the second half we had the ball 2/3 of the time, and which is not easy against
The 2013-2014 UEFA Champions League starts its group stage matches today. Manchester United are in action, Real Madrid are in action. We also see the likes of Bayern Munich also in action. But first of all, let's catch a preview and see how the teams have been preparing for this evening's round of matches. But before then, here are the full fixtures for tonight's round of matches. At the Old Trafford is Manchester United up against Bayer Leverkusen. In Spain at the Anoeta Stadium, Real Sociedad take on Shakhtar Donetsk. FC Copenhagen are at home to Juventus. Galatasaray host Real Madrid at the Tech Telecom Arena in Turkey. Benfica take on Anderlecht in Portugal. Olympiacos, they also host Paris Saint-Germain. In Group D, we have Bayern Munich up against CSKA Moscow at the Allianz Arena in Germany. Victoria Plzen, they welcome Manchester City in Group D. So those are the matches that are coming up for this evening in the group stages of the UEFA Champions League 2013-2014 season. Join us on all our platforms subsequently as we bring you details of these stories and more. My name is Rashida Baba Kadiri.
Momentum going from January, really.
Well, let's do some showbiz news now. And Beyonce's much talked about Mrs. Carter World Tour has taken her to many parts of the world already. And the tour so far has proven to be a memorable one. First, in July, her hair was caught up in a fan while performing on stage. And as if that was not enough, an overly excited fan attempted pulling her off the stage this weekend while performing at Sao Paulo in Brazil.
Beyonce was pulled off stage by a shirtless concert goer during a performance in Sao Paulo, Brazil on Sunday night. The overexcited fan managed to put his arms around the 32-year-old singer and yank her off the elevated platform she had been singing from. However, Beyonce's entourage were quick to step in, with 2 security guards rushing onto the stage to disentangle the singer from the grip of the fan. The incident occurred when Beyonce moved around the platform and leaned forward to sing to the crowd. While most of the ticket holders were happy just to bask in the singer's glow, the shirtless man became overwhelmed by the attention and decided to try and engage Beyonce in a hug. After Beyonce's security guards pulled her back onto the stage, Beyonce quickly resumed singing and dancing in her blue jumpsuit during the performance at the Estadio do Morumbi Stadium following the incident. Well, Beyonce, before the start of the Mrs. Carter concert, shared photos showing her makeup-free face as she played with Blue Ivy aboard a yacht, whilst Daddy Jay-Z was spotted in a family vacation photo enjoying a cigar.
What some fans can do, right? Well, our fans here online are very, very not like Beyonce fans, and we are totally grateful for your interaction on our social media platforms. Don't forget to continue to share your thoughts and comments and questions on any of our broadcasts on Joy News on TV, on Facebook and on Twitter. A look at our headlines again. And first batch of 2013 Hajj pilgrim to be airlifted on September 24 as the Hajj committee postpones the scheduled September 17 date. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius is visiting Moscow to try to persuade Russia to support a UN Security Council resolution on Syria. Thanks for your company. My name is Kimini Nyamani Amana. Goodbye.